Well, that didn't take very long, did it, Mr. Zelensky? Wanker. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Bear the first thing I said in mind later. No, not hope you're doing well. I mean, you know what I mean. Anyway, this video is going to be a follow-up from the last one that I did. So I obviously talked about Tommy Robinson's treatment in prison, but more importantly, I also talked about Russia and, of course, Ukraine. Because obviously this war is, well, any war's bad, quite frankly, but this particular war is particularly bad because Keir the traitor Starmer, as I said before, wanted to send 30,000 of our troops as a peacekeeping force. Well, if they had done that, I think there would have been about as much peace up there as the Festival of Glastonbury. No good could ever come of those people going to fight in a war that is neither anything to do with us, nor is it practical for these people to be up there. I think British troops should be defending British soil and nothing else. But of course we all know Keir the traitor Starmer doesn't think that, and he is willing to do anything to destroy our great nation, by hook or by crook. Maybe I should add something to my bucket list. And I'm not talking about kicking the bucket on a list. Anyway, I think there is something I'd love to do as far as a bucket list is concerned, and that is lock Keir the traitor Starmer up in a pillory, the stocks or whatever you want to call them, and let everyone have their way with him, with rotten fruit and veg and all that shit like they did in the medieval times. And that's only the start of it, but we'll worry about that another time. The way I slice it is this war has never been very good, because obviously people die in wars, and especially so with potentially our British troops going over there. However, Donald Trump decided he was going to withdraw his funds from Ukraine. I believe I said this in the last video. And what I find ironic is it turns out Joe the old biddy Biden was doing the exact same thing, saying the exact same things that Trump was right now back 2 years ago. He was getting extremely furious and irate with Zelensky. He's getting sick and tired of that man demanding more money from us. Now it's clear to see why everyone thinks he's about as practical and profitable as a second-hand scam. If I didn't know any better, I'd almost say that Zelensky is basically a Ukrainian Scrooge, only instead of Christmas, it's every fucking day. But isn't it funny how they were very quick to criticize Trump when he withdrew his funding from Ukraine? Yet they didn't do the same thing with Mr. Biden. What a surprise! Is it because he's a leftoid? Is it because he's a globalist? Is it because he's good and Orange Man bad, I wonder? Answers on a postcard to whatthefuckisgoingon.com. Blatant hypocrisy at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. Now remember what I said about Zelensky, and remember what I said earlier about how it didn't take very long? Because now, all of a sudden, now he's no longer getting US funding. Oh look, he's willing to talk about peace. Just like that. I wonder why that is, you money-grabbing wanker. I think he knows deep down that he will never win this war with Russia. Not on his own anyway. I mean, it's a simple principle of smaller country going to war with big country. Bigger country has more troops than smaller country gets fucked, put simply. Now that's not me saying that Putin's a good guy, absolutely not. He never should have invaded Ukraine. But you know what, Zelensky, anything that happens to Ukraine, it's on your head. Well, I guess to be fair, the EU and NATO should also take some responsibility because they also provoked Putin. But that motherfucker folded quicker than a cheap suit. I mean, Zelensky, he really is what you would call a dictator. I mean dictator. Or maybe I was right first time. Denying his people the ability to vote for someone else, continually shouting at his so-called allies for extra help that he thinks he's entitled to when he's actually not, and thinks that he can get anywhere he wants just by shouting the loudest. I could raise my voice and probably disturb all the citizens here in Norwich. Well, that's on top of the earthquakes for every step I take. Anyway, I could raise my voice as loud as I want. Does that mean I'm entitled to stuff? Like hell does it. If I went out my way to say I'm entitled to people's money, my videos would be downvoted faster than Justin Bieber's first album, or first music he put out, Baby. I mean, the way I slice it, it's a very tough competition between Zelensky and traitor Starmer for the title of who's the biggest dic-taster out of the pair of them. I mean, one's sending off our own troops over to a war that, as I said, has nothing to do with us, and the other's demanding money off of us. I mean, here's the thing. I think any person worth their salt would just about understand that you don't go aggressively against people who can effectively save your life or have way more power and way more influence than you. That's common sense 101. Like, if I went after Tommy Robinson, my followers would dissipate just like that. And of course, on top of all that, all of Tommy Robinson's supporters would want to, well, maybe not literally, but they would metaphorically flay me alive. I mean, devil's advocate to my own argument here, you could say I've made points against Richard Inman and Paul Thorpe. But here's the thing, I don't do those out of malice, and I'm not doing it in an aggressive manner. I don't think they're bad people. I just have some opinions that I disagree with as far as they're concerned, and obviously vice versa. But I don't want to talk too much about them, because that's not what this video is about. I merely mentioned them to basically prove a point, to put into perspective. As far as people who are far more influential than you, who have more money than you, and have more power than you, if you want to get the honey, you don't kick the beehive. Or to put it simply, fuck around, find out. Now, I'm going deep into fantasy land here, because we're going to talk about the size of Keir the traitor Starmer's bollocks. No, not the amount he talks, because we all know he does that for England. I mean, let's face it, we already know how much bollocks he talks. You take the red pill, stroke number 1, red pill, Neo, and I'll show you just how deep this nutsack goes, basically. Jokes aside, if Keir the traitor Starmer had the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, he'd be asking Zelensky for that money we gave him back. But let's face it, it's wishful thinking at best, and at worst it's delusional, quite frankly. But as I said, Zelensky folded like a cheap suit after Trump decided, you know what? No more funding for you. No more help for you. You can fend for yourself. And yes, I will go this far. I would consider Zelensky to be akin to a bully. A person who would basically go around schools, beat up kids for their lunch money. He was doing the same here in this retrospect, because he was taking money off of different countries. All in the plight of, I'm being victimized, I'm being bullied by Russia. And now we can see for what it truly is, especially considering out of the $350 billion that the US sent over to Ukraine, 100 billion of that has gone bye-bye. It's gone missing. Now, last time I checked, and I hope my maths is decent here, well, it should be, considering I at least got a C. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, that's about 28% of what the US had sent them has gone missing. Over a quarter of the money. Where the hell has that money gone? Where has it disappeared to? Remember the point I made in the past, where 50 pence to the pound was basically going missing. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. No, it's so much easier to go and slag off Vladimir Putin, where they can at least say, well, he shouldn't have invaded Ukraine. To which they are right, he shouldn't have invaded Ukraine. But you can't say, as said before, that he did this unprovoked. You can't sit there and say, oh, well, Putin is 100% responsible for that shit. Yeah, he may be 100%, stroke number 2, 100% responsible for invading Ukraine, but he's not 100% responsible for the whole war, quite frankly. If you want the people to blame as far as the war's concerned, I'd look a lot more inward if I were you. Look at the EU, look at NATO, look at all the dic-tasters and the far-left Marxist wankers. Look at people like Clinton, fake as Hollywood Teef Harris, George W. Bush, Barack Obama. just to name a few. All the people who were advocating for war. Let's face it, none of these guys want this war to end, as it would basically cut out their gravy train they're getting from that shit. They won't be able to profit from war again. Again, the mainstream media are not going to want to tell you that. That's the thing. Everything to the establishment is like a game. They look down on us, they laugh at us, they go and spend our taxpayers' money on wars like this. They piss your taxpayer money up the wall. In fact, no, they don't even just piss your taxpayer money up the wall. They piss into a bucket and then dump the fucking bucket over our heads. That's basically what's happening with our taxpayer money. They are dumping that shit all over our heads and laughing at us when it happens. I think it's time we had a talk with some of these traitors and remind them who they're meant to serve. Though I will be devil's advocate again, there was actually one thing that Keir the traitor Starmer has done, which I do fundamentally agree with. Shocking, I know. But I do have to at least give credit where credit is due. I may be a cunt, but I'm not an unreasonable one. He is apparently cutting the foreign aid budget a bit. To which, obviously, Abbott, or again, maybe I was right first time, she ended up trying to rebuke Keir the traitor Starmer. But here's the cold, bitter truth, love. Our taxpayer money should be spent in country, not abroad. The way I look at it, we have people from the UK going over to Ukraine, shouldn't be going over there. We're sending money over to Ukraine that shouldn't be going over there. That could be better spent actually improving the lives of British people. How is it that Keir the traitor Starmer could go out of his way to send billions of pounds of our money over to a war, but he couldn't afford 300 quid per stroke number 3 per pensioner and let them freeze during the winter? How is that even justifiable? How is that something anybody can even remotely consider as a good cause? Our British money should be spent on British people and British infrastructure, not on wars, or worse still, what Keir the traitor Starmer has done is send our taxpayer money over to terrorists over in Syria. I don't know about you, but I think we're a little bit more important than some terrorist scumbags over in a third world shithole, bluntly speaking. But what would I know with my 34 years? Hey, buddy! What would I know with my 34 years of life experience, huh? Genius decision of the day, holding the phone by my teeth because I forgot to put my wallet in my pocket. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, our money stays here, or it should. But as far as Ukraine is concerned, how sad is it that it takes someone like Donald Trump taking drastic measures such as entirely withdrawing US funding, all of a sudden everyone wants to talk about peace now? They were all so quick to slag off Donald Trump, say that he was going to start World War III, and yet, the moment he withdraws his funding, Ukraine caves, just like that. That sun is being really obnoxious today. But they basically caved in. All of a sudden, where's the left-wing outrage now? Where is the outrage? Oh, it's gone. Because now, they're dead silent. It's great, isn't it? How the left-wing are made to eat their own words. Oh, Trump's going to start World War III. And then Ukraine is like, oh, okay, fine, you're withdrawing our money. Okay, I guess we have to start talking about peace now. And then the whole room is just so silent, you can hear a feather drop. Whether Trump is a plonker or not, they don't want to admit now that, oh, he's actually done a good job here. He's actually stopped the Ukraine from having this mentality of, we need your money for war. Now they're thinking, oh, we better start thinking about peace, or we really will have a problem if this really does go to World War III. Coincidence? I think not. But there is something I do have to say about this war, and that is regarding a missile that was apparently launched, whether accidentally or not, that unfortunately has ended up killing one of our British soldiers. You see, this is the thing. This is why we should never get involved in foreign wars. Unless these people are directly on our shores, unless they directly threaten us, they should not even be anywhere near these foreign countries fighting their wars. They should be as far away from those countries as I am of going to the moon in a rocket, quite frankly. And what about Keir the traitor Starmer? Oh, sitting there on his little podium, morally grandstanding, saying, we're going to bring about peace. No, Keir the traitor Starmer, you were not interested in peace. You wanted this war to continue. I think you still do want this war to continue, since you're trying to send our British soldiers over there to provoke Putin. And let's face it, the EU-NATO deal that they're trying to put towards Vladimir Putin isn't even worth the paper it's printed on, quite frankly. Who on earth is going to want to, A, surrender unconditionally, B, give up the countries, or sorry, the land that they basically taken in their invasion in the first place, 3, pay $500 billion, whether it's dollars or euros, in reparations, and then 4, on top of all that, step down as leader and then face war crimes. Who's going to do that? No one. I don't think even Keir the traitor Starmer would be that stupid, and that's saying something. What this boils down to, yes, I will accept Putin should never have invaded Ukraine. That's the one thing you could say about Vladimir Putin. But nobody here can say that the US, can't even get the words out now. The EU and NATO did not provoke this war. They have to take some partial responsibility for this, as does Zelensky, because he wanted to join NATO. They have to take some responsibility in this for provoking Putin. It was a provoked war, not an unprovoked one. The mainstream media were all clambering over each other to try and say that Putin invaded unprovoked, when that was nothing further from the truth. And then obviously our career politicians, who have a track record of going off to wars and what have you, or voting for them, they decided, oh, let's go and send our troops over to war again. You remember how well that went when Tony the War Criminal Blair sent our own soldiers into Iraq on a false pretense, claiming there was WMDs in Iraq, and it turned out there weren't there. The way I slice it, the moment that occurred, anything that our career politicians have ever said about going off to help other countries by sending our troops over should have been rendered null and void, because we then knew full well our career politicians cannot be trusted. And think of the way the British people have been treated by Keir the traitor Starmer right now. Between the Southport cover-up, between politically imprisoning people just because they shared footage of the Southport riots, or jailed people for exercising their freedom of speech under Article 10 of the Human Rights Act, shouting at police. Some people weren't even remotely involved in those riots, and yet they were getting locked up because Keir the traitor Starmer didn't want news getting out. He told the police not to put any details out of Axel Radaku Banana when he went out of his way to murder those 3 beautiful girls, God rest their souls. And what about Peter Lynch, God rest his soul, who ended up taking his own life after being sentenced to it was either 28 or 32 months in prison. Meanwhile, you could be a Labour councillor, assault your own constituents, and only get 10 weeks in jail. Worse still, then have that suspended. But that's something the mainstream media don't want to talk about. Between that, between the grooming gangs, between the terrorist attacks that we've been facing, the fact that 84% of grooming gang crimes are committed by predominantly Pakistani Muslim men, the fact that we have 90% of terror suspects on the watch list being Islamic, and then Keir the traitor Starmer saying, I will do all I can to protect the Muslim community, when he should be protecting everyone, not just one section of it. You really think the army is going to want to serve Starmer? Do you honestly think anybody is going to want to serve Keir the traitor Starmer? They'd be more likely to turn their guns on him than turn their guns to Russia. And I am not by any accounts advocating for any violence towards our own MPs or a revolution of any kind in any way, shape or form. I don't want that. However, you have to understand, I can understand how they feel. I can understand why they might feel that way, of why they might want to turn their guns instead onto our own establishment, and they would rather fight for Russia than against them, quite frankly. Thank you. So, the way I slice it is we don't owe any allegiance to Keir the traitor Starmer. Now, as I said, if we basically had the Russians come to our shores and they were directly invading us, then I think people would understandably take up arms. But as far as going abroad is concerned, no chance. Like I said, you've got more chance of me going to the moon in a rocket, or me being basically crowned as the leading figure, basically the role model of being Mr. Fitness. That's not going to happen. Though I will say this much, I am going swimming tonight. I don't know if I've mentioned it in the other videos, because I have been deleting quite a few of them, but I've actually been going swimming once a week on a Wednesday, coincidentally. So basically I've got that to look forward to. Maybe that'll go to 2 or 3 times a week, I don't know, can't say. But what I do know is I definitely think it's going to be once a week bare minimum. I'm making that commitment. I am making that change. So maybe I can make 2 people become 1.5 at bare minimum. But enough about how many people I look like and whether or not I take up half the body cam, quite frankly. The bottom line in all this is that Keir the traitor Starmer has absolutely no chance of getting indigenous British people to fight for him. You could literally point a gun at my back and say, you're going to fight the Russians. And unless it's actually on our shores, I would sooner tell them to fuck off and they'd have to shoot me. Because I would never serve Keir the traitor Starmer. The day I serve Keir the traitor Starmer is the day I put a revolver in my mouth and blow my head off. It's not going to happen. If you think for 1 second we, the British people, are going to fight your wars, Keir the traitor Starmer, you've got another thing coming. You've got your own war to contend with, quite frankly. Already, you have so many Labour Party MPs, or again, maybe I was right first time, who are rebelling against you. I think I'd be a little bit more worried about what they're going to do, rather than some war that has nothing to do with us. Someone might hit me hard, but you know what? It's good for lighting, let me tell you. But anyway, as far as Keir the traitor Starmer's bollocks are concerned, to say it's this size would be pretty fucking generous. In fact, I'd probably say that's probably about 6 times what the size of those things are, quite frankly. Way I look at it, man's got no backbone. Keir the traitor Starmer is not a leader. He's a loser. He's a wanker. He's a traitor. He's a sectarianist bastard. And as said before, if he had the cojones, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, he would have asked Zelensky for all that money we gave him back. Because now that we've found out how much of a fraudster and a wanker he is, a dic-taster that he is, he shouldn't be entitled to a single fucking penny. Doesn't matter whether or not you think Putin is evil. Doesn't matter whether you think Trump is a plonker or not. Sometimes he can be, just as I can. The thing is, the cheats have been rumbled. Zelensky has been found out. Someone has opened the closets and found the skeletons inside. They found out what his deal is. And his deal is take, but never give anything in return. Well, right now, Zelensky, we're going to give one last time. And you better take this time. Because if you don't take the option of peace in this war, we could see Russia wipe you from the face of the earth.